Good morning. Welcome to Healing Life Fellowship Church. We are a non-denominational church based on spiritual philosophy. I'm Reverend Lydia Janacek. As you all woke up this morning, I bet no one here questioned if the sun would rise and if the moon will set tonight. Do we even worry about it? The babies will be born and people will pass. There are certain things we just know that will occur. We accept it, but we really don't understand it. We trust whatever it is that makes life happen. That it exists in a dimension we simply cannot see. The energy that keeps us alive is beyond our five senses and very mysterious. Whether we admit it or not, we have faith. We have tremendous faith that this unseen energy will keep the earth spinning, the grass growing, and our hearts beating 5 minutes from now. We don't know this, we trust it, and we accept it. Most of us call the force God. Others call it the universe. The name we give it is not important. The knowing that the energy, its force, is in everything that exists, including you, me, and everyone else, in everything. Yes, God is in all of us. When we say namaste to someone, it means the divine energy of God is us acknowledging and respecting the divine energy in you. When the divine light within us is experienced directly, it adds a radiance to life, unlike anything that can be described with words or pictures. When we discover that this energy is in us and accept it, we become awakened to it. We become spiritually. That is when we begin our journey on our spiritual path to find our enlightenment. On that journey, we have to learn how to forgive and to reach forgiveness. It takes understanding, love, kindness, and compassion. If we're angry, frustrated, or want to hurt someone emotionally or physically, then we're not seeing or feeling the God in ourselves. Recognize that everyone will be on a different time frame as to where they're at on their journey. So moving a little faster than others, you could be, or moving like a tortoise. It's their journey. So when you have someone you're trying to drag with you, and they're not ready, be patient, be kind, and don't judge. Maybe in this life, that's your lesson, not to be too pushy, judgmental, or controlling. There are lessons going on every moment of every day. A lot of times, we don't even realize we're in them. In other moments, we feel like we're drowning from them. None of us are excluded from these lessons. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 22, it says, "Your eyes are windows into your body. If you open your eyes wide in wonder and belief, your body fills up with light." In verse 22, God is not talking about physical eyes and physical light. He's talking about the spiritual insight. He's talking about seeing a new way spiritually. God is not out there for us to pursue. God is in our hearts to discover. God is everywhere and in everything. And that is a sense of comfort for most of us. We are never rejected under any circumstances. God doesn't judge. He never looks at the outward appearance of man. He always looks at our hearts and hears our thoughts and our intentions, waiting for us to accept him fully into our lives. So if you have ego, or you condemn another, or you don't care that you hurt them with words or actions, remember, as we hurt another soul, we are hurting our own soul's growth. That's a big one. God doesn't misinterpret our actions. He knows our intentions. He knows our hearts, even our very thoughts. He loves us even while we make choices that slow our journey down, and we have to repeat our lessons over and over and over again until we get them. Sometimes we have to repeat those lessons lifetime after lifetime after lifetime until we get them. He has patience with us. He never gives up on us. The magnitude of God's love can't be described. He wants us to live in harmony with each other. Remember, we choose our parents, our siblings, and all the lessons placed before us. Then we're born, and we forget this as we leave the womb, because most of us would not want to go through all of these things if we signed up for them, which we did, and remember it. But we did come here to learn those lessons. Even before we were born, some lessons come to us. Think about an unborn child that feels and senses that it's unwanted before it is even born. That soul's roots of his existence are already in question of acceptance, which is when that soul lessons begins for that particular child. To live in God's ways is to understand that every human being wants to be accepted and loved. A student who does not feel accepted by his teacher will not learn. A person not accepted by his colleagues will end up feeling sad and have depression, possibly anxiety, or low self-esteem. The people we choose to live with hopefully give us the feeling of self-respect, and so we can have acceptance of who we are. That's very important. Our minds are always connected to the one infinity mind, and therefore all knowledge and wisdom is available to us at any time. This energy, this universal power that created each and every one of us, through that spark of light within our higher self, or the power within it, is always there. We need to accept it's there and open ourselves to it. We, as humans, tend to measure ourselves with the outward standards of others in order to gain approval from others. If your life is marked by characteristics that cause others to ridicule or judge us, we feel rejected and try to compensate for these traits. We might hide our defects, conform to fads, become extremely critical of ourselves, compare ourselves with others, develop a fear of failure, or become excessively shy. When I was younger, I was born with an extremely fat tongue. The results were no one could understand me when I talked. Anything I said at all, they couldn't understand it. Because of my tongue, every time I would open my mouth to say something, the first letter of every word was left off. Try saying a sentence like that. It doesn't work. Mommy, aunt, auto. That was just, Mom, I want water. No one could understand me. Until I was much older, they had no idea what I was saying. I was made fun of for years. I went to a speech therapist until I was 10 years old. I was pulled out of class every single day from first grade to fifth grade. Before I started first grade, I was in with Easter seals, and I had a speech therapist that came to my home, and I dreaded it because I was different. The kids were cruel, but even the adults made comments that hurt. I overheard one teacher tell my mom she should have me tested. She said that I made no sense. She told my mom maybe she should accept that I wasn't going to be able to communicate like most people. What did that do to me? Those comments made me feel inadequate and stupid. I became very shy. When I was younger, I hid behind my mom and wanted not to be heard or seen, so I wouldn't be made fun of. Words are hurtful. Words cut deep into our souls. We tend to hold them much longer than actions in our memories. That day with the teacher, my mom knew I heard her and reassured me over and over again that I would be able to talk and people would understand me. It's funny what I do for a living now. I knew what I was saying, it just wasn't coming out. I would get very frustrated. I hated being pulled out of class, and I stood out. I was different. I had to work very hard to learn to accept the challenges with my speech. Once I accepted it, I made a conscious effort to ignore those being cruel and hateful towards me. I learned to accept myself and to begin to love me. Through hard work and wonderful parents not giving up on me, I was able to communicate and be understood. We need to remember God made each one of us unique and perfect in our own way. Accepting ourselves sometimes can be difficult. We need to remember at all times we're all children of God, and God makes no mistakes. Accepting is recognizing that whatever happens and however we respond to it is precisely what we need at the moment for our highest good in learning. We need to remember there are no coincidences. Everything happens exactly when it's supposed to. Self-acceptance is something we all have to do. There's something accepting. There's accepting that you pick up your parent. There's accepting that we picked our parents, our siblings, your gender, our physical features, and our birth order. If you're the oldest, the middle, or the baby, or one of 10, and you're the sixth one, you chose it. Every one of those things. We chose all of these, including our birthplace, whether it be here in the United States, or in a third world country, or a different dimension. We choose our race and our mental capacity. When we understand all of this is our own doing, and all of our lessons we need to learn instead of being angry or frustrated, we have to look at it all. Accept that this is what we are here to experience in this lifetime. I have a dear friend that says mostly weekly, with what's going on in the world, are you telling me you really chose this? I can't believe I would choose it. Think about everything in the last year or so. We all have had to accept to wear these masks, to have our temperatures taken before we enter places. We were told to work from home, and we even were told for a while we couldn't go to church. Some got very angry. Some even rioted. During these times is when we need to go in and look towards our higher self for acceptance. Try to remember we may not understand why we choose to be here on earth with these lessons, but that we agreed to it. Sometimes we need to accept things. Other times, we need to evaluate a situation and think for ourselves. Figure out what is really right for us and what resonates with us on an individual basis. After all, God made all of us different and unique. We need to understand that acceptance is a choice, to not force a change on a situation which often creates new problems, but to change yourself in the form of your perceptions and your interpretations. As self-development expert Wayne Dyer puts it, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. It doesn't necessarily mean you like things as they are. You can't certainly wish for it to be different. But in this moment, as the saying goes, it is what it is. In Taoist teachings, there exists a concept known as Wu Wei. There exists a concept known as, sometimes translated as non-doing or non-action. Wu Wei refers to the state in which you are aligned with effortless going with the flow of life. It stems from recognition that the universe is a field of constant change, and most things are written in stone. Things are not written in stone. The resistance to acceptance is rooted in the ego. The ego wants to control and have things its way at all times, and have things its way It wants to be in charge of everything within its experience. Acceptance runs contrary to an ego's agenda of imposing its will on others. Therefore, don't be surprised when the ego tries to oppose your attempts to accept things as they are. It will kick and scream, but remember, the ego is just one layer of life and doesn't have the final say. When your awareness is established in your soul, and we allow and accept the higher energy into our life, the ego's voice falls away, making acceptance more accessible. We then realize that true happiness comes from embracing the flow of life's changes. Then in every moment you have the choice to either let go or be dragged down. By going with what life offers you in this moment, you find you flow through life with balance, rather than trying to swim against the current of life. As you practice acceptance and allowing yourself to conform to every changing experience of life, you become more flexible and resilient to meet each situation with grace and ease, because you're allowing God to assist you in being in the moment. As martial artist Bruce Lee so famously said, "You must be shapeless, formless, like water. When you pour water in a cup, it becomes the cup. When you pour water in a bottle, it becomes a bottle. When you pour water in a teapot, it becomes a teapot. Water can drip and it can crash. Become like water, my friend. We don't want to crash. It is only when we accept God in our lives that we can be understanding and compassionate and have empathy towards others. To be truly the best in the moment, whether it be to people, events, or situations, even if we don't agree or like what those are doing around us or the present situation at hand, we need to be totally adaptable and responsive to each moment as it occurs in our life. It takes work and regular practice to override your natural tendencies to force changes on others. Mindfulness and meditations are great ways to expand our awareness so you can recognize opportunities to practice acceptance on a regular basis. And once you become aware of these moments that we struggle with, you can learn to have acceptance, to live a life of balance and love. With this said, we can't live in fear. Again, we can't live in fear for our future. With everything going on at the moment, it takes work and regular practice to override your regular tendencies to force changes on the outside world. Quieting the mind, meditation is learning to listen to the voice within. It can help us to connect to our masters, our guides, and our angels, and of course, our loved ones. So you can recognize in the process, it makes it easier to recognize that God is right there. Once you become aware of how easy it is to connect to your higher self and spirit, you can tap into the power of acceptance to live a life of expanding your freedom and your grace. By accepting life as it is, you can align with the ever-changing currents and changes of life and learn to cope and accept them with skill and ease. And we need to be responsible for our thinking, knowing we can create all that is good, not only for ourselves, but the universe. If we accept only what is in our highest good from God and understand that man is causing chaos in the world right now, we, the people, can help change this by taking our thoughts from fear to trusting our own inner voices and not accepting something when it doesn't feel right. Think for ourselves and not follow the world like we're lemmings. Trust, have faith, and accept your inner voice first and foremost. Remember, the God in me is the same God in you. God loves each one of us as we love our own children unconditionally. God accepts us just as we are. He doesn't judge us. He accepts us as is. He embraces us. He knows each and every one of our thoughts, the good ones and the not so good ones. So when we need to really be aware of our thoughts and intentions at all times. And in closing, in the Bible, in Psalm chapter 136, verse 26, it says, "Give thanks to the God of heaven. His love endures us forever." Thank you.